Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Star Wars Stuff Podcast. My name is David.
I'm Colin.
I'm Josh.
And I'm the other
Ben?
Joe.
Oh,
So close.
Star Wars Stuff Podcast tradition there. Yeah, we have today a very special guest. We have the Momdalorian of Casey, or can we say what Casey is?
Kansas City.
Awesome. And yeah, we promised her last episode, and we have delivered. She is here with us. She does some really awesome cosplay. I followed her on Instagram, I believe, last episode. I don't think she knows that, but yeah, I saw some of her cosplay. Super awesome. Super hyped to have you on this podcast and get your opinions on this season finale of The Mandalorian Season 3. A lot of stuff to talk about. A lot of different things happened. A lot of unsuspected things. A lot of surprises. They went a lot of different ways that I think Colin called me like at 4 o'clock in the morning, telling me he had to speak to someone about this episode. And yeah, I'm on like 2 hours of sleep right now. So so yeah, I stayed up and I looked at everyone's reaction on Twitter and on Facebook, and it's very mixed, very surprising. It's I hate to say it, but it feels a lot like the reaction that we got from The Last Jedi in a way. And I think it's more positive online than maybe the way Colin and I kind of feel. We kind of feel kind of underwhelmed about the episode. And we just spoke to Josh before the episode here, and he said he felt kind of the same way. I don't have Ben, the Momdalorian, or Josh dude's reaction. Starting with Ben, what's your initial thoughts on this episode?
I'm still very mixed. I've had maybe 12 hours to sort of think it over in my head a bit. And it's still I can't land on whether or not I like it or don't like it. I'm still feeling very mixed. I feel like I need to have another watch, maybe two, before I can actually make up my mind. Like, there are parts of it that I enjoyed, some great tension building in the first half, but I feel like maybe it just sort of fell a bit flat in the second.
Okay. Momdalorian, what'd you think?
I loved it, but I also feel like I need to watch it like maybe 2 or 3 more times, because I think every time I watch it, I'm going to see more things and look at different pieces that I didn't see the first time, because I was concentrating on the armor or Bo or Din or Grogu, and now I just kind of need to watch everything around it and kind of soak up more each time.
All right, Josh, dude.
Personally, I think it was more of a rushed finale than I would have expected. I felt this season as a whole was very slow. It felt like the few things that we got drops for, we never really got paid off in the end. And so a lot of it kind of felt like these last 2 episodes were its own season almost, that they tried to really pack in instead of really make it feel like an entire season of connected storytelling.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what everyone kind of thinks about it. Colin just told me a while ago that IGN gave it a super high rating, which was really kind of shocking. But like some of you have said, that I need to watch it again. I've only seen it once. I've seen a couple people's reactions. I've seen Late to the Party's reaction. It's a great reaction. But yeah, Rick Famuyiwa directed it. He's an awesome director. I'm a big fan of his. He's done some really great episodes. He's also an executive producer. The action was really nice, really intense. I love that part about the episode. But what Josh dude said, I mean, the payoffs, it seemed like we were waiting for who were the spies. Is the mythosaur going to come into play somehow? Are we going to get maybe Boba Fett? Because we all saw that Empire magazine cover with the Boba Fett helmet on the front of it, thinking that, okay, well, that's a really subtle clue that, okay, he's going to show up. Didn't show up. We had Luke Skywalker at the end of season 2, and we all kind of expected we're going to get some type of really big, splashy type character announcement, entrance / just surprise, and we didn't get that either. Maybe the Rebels crew. I mean, that was another theory. We were going to get maybe Hera
Okay.
maybe an end credit scene. I think everyone anticipated that, and we didn't get that, which was really shocking. Josh, you going to say something?
No, that's definitely something that I thought we're gonna get like an end credit scene that would have included like
Yeah.
Thrawn, especially because of the Ahsoka trailer that had dropped, and we had that lead up from the last episode where they're like, "We need to see some real power in here. I'm gonna take over and whatever." And then because Moff dies this episode, air quotes,
Spoiler, yeah.
I would have thought that like there we go. This is the perfect time to have him like just walk in the room, not say anything, or maybe walk in the room and be like, everything's going according to plan or something like that. And just everyone lose their minds because you're like, cool. Then we get the actual like face reveal of Thrawn because you only got to see it because you went to the Ahsoka panel, whereas no one else has really seen the face of Thrawn yet. So
Yeah.
it would be such a perfect time in my head to do that.
Well, so I thought they were going to show Thrawn because they showed him at the panel. That made the most sense to me because it was like, okay, cool. Here is Thrawn. They are showing us there early because it would just make sense that they're showing it early because Thrawn was going to be shown like very, very soon, like way before the Ahsoka show. And that honestly made the most sense. So when Thrawn didn't show up, I was very surprised. And the whole title, of the episode, The Return, that also pointed at, hey, who is going to return? Is it going to be Thrawn? That made the most sense to me. And to me, I guess the title means the Mandalorians have returned to Mandalore and they have restored it. I guess that's the returning title. I mean, that makes the most sense to me of what the title means now. But that title meant a lot of things before we saw pretty much anything in the episode. So I'm very, really, really curious of what they're going to do, going forward, because I mean, of just with the character Din in general. And a lot of reviews. So something I noticed is that a lot of the fact pages, like the Lake of All Star Wars and them and everything, their reviews of the episode was not good. But then you have kind of like the normal kind of standard fans that aren't on that level that are just like, oh, I thought the episode was great. So I think there's a lot of mixed feelings in the community. I felt that way like this morning, but after I just got done watching it for the second time, and I got more of a better look on the episode, just because as you all were saying, was like, the more you watch, the more you kind of have a feel of what's going on in the episode, and you catch more things that you probably missed before. And I think that's what happened to me. So just watching it, just a second time, I felt a lot better about the ending. It did feel like the end of the show. It didn't feel like a finale of the season. It felt like the finale of the show. And that got me really confused, especially with the Return of the Jedi, kind of ending of where they kind of circled on Din and Grogu.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that felt like, I kind of felt like the end of a Looney Tunes short. And I was like, okay, cool. But I was just like, I think they're doing that for Return of the Jedi, but just the way they ended it, I was like, oh, okay.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. They've previously said they already have plans for Mando, like season 4 or 5.
Yes.
Things like that. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, this wouldn't be the first time a show's done like a quote unquote repilot. They had one main storyline for a few seasons, and they, using the same characters, completely revamped. Community comes to mind specifically for that, from seasons 5 and 6 compared to seasons 1 through 4 of Community. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did that in The Mandalorian, especially with kind of this almost being the end of Din's story, where Din kind of got phased out through this season. I wonder if seasons 4 and 5 would be more focused on Bo and the armor and their journey in reclaiming Mandalore.
Yeah, I was definitely thinking the same thing, where you have, this feels like they kind of had a beginning and an end already set up, and then realized how good it was or doing, and then they're like, hey, we can actually add more seasons. And I feel like this could have been the end of where Din was, but I feel like they're gonna bring him back in different seasons, because I'm like, I personally, you could have ended it here and maybe had some bigger stakes. I feel would have been more helpful towards, because I mean, you coming off of the whole Luke in the last one, I was like, we're gonna get something big, but I feel like there wasn't any big reveals.
No, and they said there was gonna be too. So I was
Yeah, that was weird. They kept saying some like giant stuff is gonna happen, and that I was like, okay. And it was unfortunately when you say that to Star Wars fans, we expect a lot. So, and I feel like it didn't deliver.
So it really makes you think. Okay, so did they pivot at some point, kind of like what the Force Awakens did when Harrison Ford broke his ankle? Did they totally change the direction they were going? Because Brendan Wayne is on record saying that we were going to feel some kind of way at the end, which made us think that maybe, okay, well, is Din Djarin going to die? Is something like
Din
horrible going to
Grogu.
happen?
Yeah.
In Grogu.
So
They
I
also-
mean, yeah, what really happened? What's responsible? Is it the possible kind of pivot to where Filoni got awarded the climactic event film? Is that what kind of changed things? Was it maybe because Filoni was concentrating more on Ahsoka and not really concentrating as much on Mandalorian? Was it Pedro Pascal being on set physically on The Last of Us while The Mandalorian season 3 was shooting and he was just recording voice? I mean, there could be so many reasons for it. We might never know. But yeah, before we go any further, though, I do want to recognize our awesome patron support. Starting with the purple tier, we have Chris Simpson, Kevin Leininger, Devin McCaffrey, Drew Peters, Sean Greathouse, and Zach Netzel. On the red tier, we have Fenrir526, Maya Morris. On the black tier, we have Maka Tautala, Nathan Shank, Evan Opaker, Liam McCallion, and the newly minted Texas Vader 76. He upgraded from the purple tier. So thank you so much for all the awesome love and support. And I think without further ado, we're going to go and break down this episode 10 seconds by 10 seconds. That's what Disney allows us to do here. So I'm going to share my screen here, and we're going to bring this up.
Oh yeah, and to me, I think the worst part is that we didn't get any Max Rebo. Like I know that we were going to spend time in Mandalore, but I was like, come on, man, come on.
I wanted to see what happened more with Ahmed and Grogu after the temple escape as well.
Yeah, that also.
Like that kind of started and went nowhere.
Yeah,
I feel like that had its time though in the limelight. Like we got how Grogu escaped from Coruscant.
We
That
get
was-
one thing a season, guys. We get one thing a season.
well, season 2 of Tales of the Jedi was announced, so they could, maybe do that, kind of story and
Please
kind
don't.
of, explain. I mean, they could. I'd rather have a live action
Quinlan
but-
massage. That is what I want, and that's what all the fans I keep hearing talking about. So, let's make that happen. That'd make me really happy.
I just want
I
to
want
point
to
this.
turn off the volume. Yeah.
So I know it's something we haven't really talked about on the show, but the lighting on the helmets. A lot of people have made like a big kind of issue about it. So it's lightsabers passing over the helmets that are lighting these helmets. So if it's red light, it's an evil helmet or head. And if it's blue, it's obviously good. But the very last helmet appears to be Din Djarin's helmet, and it's a red light. So did you make anything of that at all?
That's reaching.
I agree. I think that's reaching.
Bounty hunting bad.
Yeah, see right there.
I think Din was red in season 1. I'm gonna check that before I completely
And see,
spout lies on the internet.
I was thinking that there was other like good guys with red lighting. I don't know, but people did make a little bit of a deal about that. So yeah, we get going pretty quickly here.
Yeah, season 1, episode 1, Din's helmet is lit in red. So people just noticed something 24 episodes in.
Well, I mean, they've talked about it previously, and we just never really brought it up on the podcast. But anyways, so the episode starts right off where we left it. So previous episode could have been actually longer. But yeah, we see Bo-Katan leading the charge out through the catacombs of Mandalore, essentially. And she's essentially talking to, I think, who we all think that was possibly the spy in Axe Woves. Did you guys think that was going to be a reveal here?
Speaking
I
of
Yes.
think
yourself,
they had.
Yeah.
Well, because I thought there was the chance it could be the armorer. I know some people said it was the actor who played he played Skinny Pete in Breaking Bad. I can't think of his character's name in this, but some people were saying, "Hey, it's probably
I
him."
did think it might have been the people who were on Mandalore who were just
Yeah.
alive because they probably would have known about Moff Gideon being there because they're like,
Cut
we'll
a
take
deal
you.
there.
Yeah, but it's fine.
Yeah, Mom DeLorean, did you think that we're going to get a reveal of a spy or spies? And who did you think, if you did think, was the spy?
I thought they were going to bring that character back in that talked to the droid and told Moff Gideon what was happening. I thought that was going to come back in.
Oh, you're talking about Kane from? Okay, yeah, okay, okay. Whew.
All right, yeah, so we have a really awesome shot here of Axe Woes flying up, and then we get
My man doesn't even go down with the ship.
so yeah, so essentially Axe Woes flies up to the clouds, loses communication with Bo-Katan, which is another kind of convenient thing that leads us to believe maybe he is a spy. And then we get this shot of Din being dragged by, I mean, who are the people underneath these Beskar trooper suits? Are they clones? Are they just stormtroopers? Was that ever solidified?
we
That'd be a pretty
are.
cool reveal
They
if it
could
was
be
going
Moff
through.
Gideon clones without the Force. Possibly.
Well, I know when they actually got hit, we didn't hear them sound like Moff Gideon. They didn't sound
No.
like Moff Gideon when they actually got hit or anything. So I think it was just,
One of them talks about dropping the shields as well when
It's
they
being
first
guys.
didn't appear.
Yeah.
Since it didn't sound like them either.
I think their design stood out more than who was under the armor. It's just the idea of a new classification.
Yeah, Din certainly does put up a fight here.
Din
And,
hasn't
of
been this
course,
formidable since early season 2, it feels like.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I think he's gotten his ass handed to him a lot in this season.
Yeah, season 1, I loved how if he was in fights, he'd still get some hits, but he'd always get back up. Like I guess like the Jawas, he'd have some really good moments and then he'd get knocked off. Like he was infallible, or he wasn't infallible, but this entire season he's just been kicked to the dirt. And then this episode he was like a Terminator, basically. It was a very stark change to see, and it felt like another case of the writers kind of pushing characters to fit the narrative just because they wanted to reach a specific ending rather than making it feel more natural.
Yeah. I agree.
yeah, it really did feel like he certainly did give it his all fighting. Did you guys think that Grogu was going to show up here and kind of
No,
Saved
but I'm
Din's
glad he
life?
did because we're finally getting him to not be just a little baby, and he's actually doing something and being helpful. And I like how we're finally pushing away from him just being like, I'm little damsel, and sometimes I do things, but not much. And I'm like, yes, have him be something prominent and actually have Din be like, I'm gonna rely on you. That made me happy.
And they also did that for the character Omega in season 2 of the Bad Batch. So I like that they're kind of taking those characters that weren't really doing anything and they're actually giving them something to do, and it's helping them build, as characters. Because the big complaint for season 1 of the Bad Batch was Omega was just there and she wasn't doing anything. And then you jump to the second season and she's on on every mission and she's actually using her skills. So it's awesome to see that in this Grogu is, he's not in his pod. Like he's actually doing stuff and he's using the Force and he's actually fighting, like full out fighting in this. So it's awesome to see that.
Yeah, he has really awesome control of the IG unit. And you can see here on screen, if you're watching us, he's spraying Din Djarin a lot like at the end of season 1 with a back to spray.
Yeah.
And Din gets set on fire, essentially. He gets kind of roasted there, but his cape doesn't catch on fire. I don't know about the physics on that, but He seems to be okay. And he gets sprayed with the Bacta spray. And the fact that Grogu's in there in the fight, I don't know. It feels kind of alarming to me that you have Grogu in there. I mean, he's 50 years old and he has the Force, but it's like a father with his son bringing your son along in the battle. I don't know.
I didn't expect Grogu to show up there, and I think he's definitely mastered the movements quickly in the IG-11 or 12. I felt like somebody was going to come in, but I didn't know if it was like Ahsoka or Bo or somebody else that would come in to help him. But I did not expect it to be Grogu.
What do you guys feel about Grogu coming into of his own, where he can actually do something? Like they gave him like the whole mech suit and everything, and I don't know if that makes him more prominent with his skills because you watch him like jump around later in the episode, but I don't know. Like, are you happy that he's doing something, or would you still like him to be kind of just there?
It just kind of goes back to the whole thing of him not being a damsel anymore. Damsel in distress. It's he can hold his own, and I think that's a nice change to see that he's starting to just sort of come into his own. Even if it is using a mech, he can still go between mech force. So he's not down and out once he's done something with the Force. He's still got something he can fall back on. It is nice to see that he doesn't need to be protected. He's out here protecting Din now.
Yep.
Yeah.
100% agree.
Yeah, I think Grogu's character progression is on par for what he's capable of now with the Force and what we saw him do in the episode. I thought it made sense. He used the Force to the extreme of his capabilities and didn't have to take a nap afterwards. So I thought that was showing that he's actually gotten stronger.
Blocking all that fire again.
Yeah. So right here, Din Djarin essentially says if we don't take down Moff Gideon, this will never end. So at this point, I was like, yeah, Moff Gideon's probably gonna bite it, and possibly Din Djarin too.
I was increasingly worried at that because I love Moff Gideon as a character. I love what Giancarlo Esposito brings to the role. And we've only had him in the ending 2 episodes of every season so far, and especially this season. This is the most powerful Gideon's ever been, and it felt like we got so much lead up to it in past episodes, especially with episode 3 and I believe it was episode 6, maybe episode 5, with the Lambda, where I was kind of really hoping that Moff kind of had a very large presence throughout the entirety of the season, so he didn't feel kind of just so ham-fisted and quick at the end to hear his whole plan and to have him go out on his own terms. So I personally was very worried that we were going to see Moff die, and I was kind of sad to see that happen.
But he has clones. He's not always out. That's why I was sitting there. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's why they got rid of the mustache. The clones don't grow mustaches.
Oh, boom! There you go. It's not really Moff Gideon. It's his clone, and then the real Moff Gideon won't appear until the movie, and then he's gonna be like, "I've been hiding."
The real Moff Gideon won't show up for the last 20 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
and yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So real quick, what did you guys think about this title, The Return? What jumped to your mind immediately?
Thrawn.
Well,
as someone who didn't go to Celebration and didn't see Thrawn's face, I didn't think we were going to see him at all.
I'm surprised you didn't. I'm not gonna lie, because I will tell you what. I as soon as I was walking, as soon as I was walking out and I was going up the escalator, I got done calling Josh and David, and I went on YouTube just to see, and it was already on there. So that trailer instant.
Oh, I've seen his face. I didn't see it on the big screen.
Oh,
I didn't expect Thrawn at all because these shows are already so interconnected. Sorry, Josh, you can go.
I think my main thing of why I thought Thrawn was coming was because of the giant Chekhov's gun they left in the last episode, where they have the whole meeting with Hux and all the people, and they're like, "Well, I haven't seen Thrawn, and he's just hiding, and and he must be weak because he's not doing anything. I'm gonna take over." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So, in my opinion, this is what I thought in my head: he's gonna die, and then at the end, you're gonna have an after credit scene where Thrawn walks in and hails everyone, and then they're all like, Thrawn, yes, and he doesn't say anything, and it just like pans to his face. That's what I thought was going to happen as our after credit scene. And the another reason is because we had that Ahsoka trailer drop, and you don't see his face, and it's just from the back of him. So I was like, everyone knows he's coming. He's going to be a threat in this, in Ahsoka. So why not just be like, this is the lead up, ta-da, instead of just making it like he's doing something. We don't know what he's doing right now, but he's doing something. We tune into Ahsoka to find out. It's like, okay, cool. Like I didn't.
Yeah,
There's
I totally
no
agree
hyper
with that,
build up.
Josh. Yeah.
In that meeting as well, don't they literally say he's going to return? Like they use the word return.
Yep.
So as soon as I saw the thing, the title pop up, I'm like, okay, so they're referring to the meeting, that whole scene that they inserted into the end of beginning of last episode. So okay, here it comes.
Yeah. So what they told you was true from a certain point of view, is what you're saying.
Mandalorian, what did you think?
I thought it was going to be either Ahsoka or Thrawn because they've had, Din appeared on Book of Boba Fett and they've had Ahsoka come into The Mandalorian. So I felt like they were going to make a tighter connection and try and get people who maybe not already be excited about Ahsoka, especially when we saw Zeb a few episodes back that really got you thinking Rebels. So I thought they were going to make a real tight connection to Ahsoka.
Yeah. Yeah, because of that would also make sense as well, because we had Ahsoka in season 7 of the Clone Wars help Bo take the planet back. So it's like, okay, cool. She could come back in this final episode and do the same thing. It would just make sense. And then that would be a great way to be like, hey, guess what? I'm getting my own show like in August. So
I feel like they closed every single loop that they could have kept going. Like Darksaber, well, that's not going to come back up probably. And then we're like, all right, so Mandalore, oh, well, we're already here. It's fine. We're going to make something out of it. And then like Din and Grogu, are they separated anymore? Nope, they're already back together and they're just going to chill out at a house for the rest of their days. It's like, okay, you've closed all this. Where's the open end of where I want to see what comes next? It's like, oh, the cloning facility. Oh, don't worry, it got destroyed. Like, where's our big questions that we want to have towards our speculation of the future for Star Wars? I feel like that's a major part of the Star Wars community, is having this speculation as to what comes next. And I feel like this season basically could have been the end of the Mandalorian series, and it would have fit. Like everything that's popped up would have fit into being like, we're done. There's no extra questions to be answered until you see Ahsoka.
I like the open-ended of Din, like having his own little farmland in Navarro and talking and being a private worker for the New Republic for reaching Outer Rim systems, helping out there, getting his kind of lone end jobs. And it reminds me a lot of season 1, having those like single adventure episodes that were very concise, very focused on just Din being a lone Mandalorian trying to find his way in the world. And I wish we got a continuation of that in this season. Whether we get that in the 4th season, if this season was like the transfer of power over to Bo, so Bo will be the focus in seasons 4 and 5, and the Mandalorian show will shift away from focusing on Din and focus on the Mandalorians on Mandalore, and that'll be the next huge focus of the show. I don't know, but
because I feel like where we're ending up is this Filoni-verse movie, right? So I don't feel like this series had anything to do with where that's going. But yes, I completely agree with you that I don't think that the next Mandalorian will be about Din. I really do feel like this is going to be like Bo's story from here, or Sabine coming in and being like, hey, look, this is where I'm at. And then we're all going to get all these Mandalorians to come back for this one movie. So
yeah. I will say the one like special character I thought had a chance of appearing would be a live action Ursa Wren.
Oh.
Because we had her work directly with Bo during the Siege of Mandalore in Clone Wars Season 7. So I felt it'd be a fun, like, if it's a quick episode ending, all the cards were kind of stacked already. I didn't see them shuffling anymore in the deck. But I was like, she fits as a Mandalorian character they could quickly show that doesn't need to steal the scene, but still be a fun ad for deep lore fans. So that was something I was like, maybe it could come into play, but I wasn't like setting my hopes on for it.
Okay.
Yeah, this Facebook user here has an interesting comment. Using cloning to combine the best traits of multiple people enhances importance of the Rey and Kylo's Force dyad in the sequel trilogy. in the words of Bo-Katan, stronger together. Do you guys think that we're still really kind of leading and having story elements that lead up to the sequel trilogy, or do you think it's a little bit more vague what they're doing? Because we all know with the cloning and the Project Necromancer, we're assuming that's going to lead up to how they resurrected Palpatine. Do you think? I mean, the
Yeah.
storyline is
But
kind
I
of still
mean-
following that with the reveal that the clones were Moff Gideon.
I feel like that's literally just answered that big question because they're like, that villain dialogue, like that monologue, because he's just like, and these are my clones, and I'm creating them to be able to use the Force and this, and I was just like, okay, so now people can just be like, yeah, they're gonna get that information and they're gonna try to do it with the Emperor, and it succeeds. So okay, like. Like I feel like that was all just kind of boom, there we go, and there's your answer. So I feel like that's another loop that's closed. So
Yeah,
'cause we
late to the
don't-
party's here.
we don't know what happened to Dr. Pershing because he's just mind melted somewhere.
Right.
I guess like okay, and it didn't feel like anything that he doesn't have anything to offer in the future anyway. Like that's it. That's just done for him. I'm like okay.
So does everyone agree with this here? Late to the party says feels like they put the Mando stuff to bed for now because Ahsoka will have nothing to do with the Mandalorian storylines, and they wanted to explain why the Mando characters have no need to show up.
Well, you're gonna have Sabine.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think they mean like, as in like characters from the show, The Mandalorian, like not different Mandalorian characters, but that also, I question that comment because, you've got Teva that is part of the New Republic, so it would just make sense that he would show up in the show in some way because he's not just about like the Mandalorian, timeline. He's about the bigger threat. And
Yeah.
Ahsoka is going to be, about that as well. So it's going to be kind of adding to what of the storyline that they built up in the Mandalorian.
I completely agree with that comment. I just feel like a drop of showing Thrawn would have been the only connection I needed to be like, boom, that's a great connection. Let's have
Yeah.
people speculating on who this guy is or want to like dig in more to figure out who this guy is. Because a lot of people haven't watched Rebels or haven't watched the Clone Wars or don't have this kind of connection. And it's the main thing that they've been watching is The Mandalorian. So when Ahsoka does come out, is that going to be enough for people to be like, ooh, wow, a whole new show? Like, does this have anything to connect with Din? Does this have anything to connect? Like, no. But if you put the blue guy at the end, people be like, ooh, who's the blue guy? I don't know who that is. Oh, he's going to be in Ahsoka? Oh, he's in Ahsoka. Oh, he's the bad guy of Ahsoka. Like, I don't know why they didn't do that in my head.
That would have been great marketing, yeah.
Yeah, in my head, it just connects so well to having Thrawn be at the end of that episode, and he wasn't, so.
Do you think there's a possibility they'll pull Mando and Grogu off the farm to come into Ahsoka and help with Thrawn?
That's kind of like the running joke because it happened in Book of Boba Fett where there's 2 episodes had nothing to do with Boba Fett, and it was essentially Mando season 2.5. So I think some of the jokes that were made were okay. So are we going to get Din and Grogu like somewhere just thrown randomly in the Ahsoka show?
I thought that they're probably going to come back for the Filoni movie. Like that's their main entrance back. Because if Boba doesn't come back for this show, then I don't expect Din to be in Ahsoka. But I expect all of these shows to end up leading to this Filoni-verse movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't forget about Skeleton Crew because that's also tied in as well. And yes, that is going to be like the Goonies, Stranger Things, type vibe of a Star Wars show. But you have Vane the pirate from this season that will be appearing in that. So who knows? You might see Grogu and Din kind of go on their own bounty and be like, all right, hey, you know what? He's wanted. And then he just shows up in that show. So I think we could see them sooner than the big movie that Dave Filoni is doing. I think there's that possibility. But yeah.
I just had a thought that Din is still going to be the focus of Mandalorian seasons like 4 and 5 and all that stuff. And they're actually shelving all the Mandalorians on Mandalore. And they're going to be held aside for the large film. and instead bring the Mandalorian to be a more small focused show. Because even in the description of this episode, it still said the Mandalorian and his allies. They're still referring to Din as the Mandalorian in the context of the show. So I can actually see him shelving all the Mandalorians and keeping them back, and then Din becomes a more connective player, like, you know, coming in to help with the New Republic and have a more adventure-based show in the future.
I think that would make a whole lot of sense if they went that route.
Yeah.
Return to where they started in season 1 and 2 of Mando, where, like you said, Mando was going different places, and we were seeing different people, different areas. You know, the Crate Dragon type episode.
Yeah, more Adventure of the Week type episodes. Yeah,
it'd be kind of odd because all of Din's like Western gear is gone. His classic Western pistol gone, armband gone, crest gone. All those are. He's much more kind of spacey now, especially in his new pistol we saw him have at the very end of the show.
Yeah.
But just as a quick devil's advocate, I'm happy they didn't show Thrawn because I like it when my shows, like, when everything doesn't feel like it's forced to connect to something else. I like it when they kind of feel like their own piece. I think in the long run, like 8 years down the road, upon rewatching things that are always so incredibly connected, they feel a little more hollow than at the moment. Yes, they help for speculation, they help for marketing in the current, but in the future, they don't work as well when looking back.
Yeah. So back to the episode here. We see one of the Mandalorians that was on Mandalore already, leading the way to what is. If we play it a little bit here.
Let's go this way.
I like how it immediately picks up where we left off, though. That's something I can 100% love, that it's just straight into this episode.
Yeah, and it's interesting here, the tracker, they show Grogu as a green dot and Din as a red dot, apparently. So, yeah, they're going through. This is kind of like a New Hope type vibe, it felt like to me, where they're kind of sneaking around a little bit.
Yeah.
And then he contacts old R5 here, who has the same booster rockets that R2 has in Attack of the Clones.
It's really weird. I mean, no, like, don't get me wrong, I love it, but it's funny to me that this one droid that was maybe on screen for like 30 seconds in A New Hope is now like the savior of Mando in this episode, and I just think it's funny.
We're all about redemption arcs, baby. This one, yep.
That
they even gave one to Jar Jar.
Yeah.
So yeah, R5 scomps in and is in direct communication with Din Djarin, and getting to, I believe, the scene where we see the shields.
They actually just released this Mandalorian's action figure today, and then R5 for the Black Series.
Axe Woves?
No, the person that was in charge of the cruiser before it gets blown up.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
The guy that has the new figure with like the silver pauldrons.
Oh, interesting. I wonder what his name is.
I'm looking about
Mando.
Brando.
So at this point, I'm thinking all the way that Axe Woves is the spy. The way he's acting, the way they're filming him, his dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone needs to abandon ship. Maybe he's going to turn around and like basically kill all these and pick them off as they fly away, the Mandalorians, onto all those Mando cruisers. So, I mean, it's setting up perfectly for that.
He does not currently have a name. It's only the Mandalorian Fleet Commander.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool how they just fly out and land.
This brings me back to the Clone Wars episode of where they actually do the siege.
Yeah.
So this is probably the closest that we'll ever get to a live action version of that, because I love that for the Clone Wars, but I could just imagine of how awesome that would be in live action as well. So
yeah, just getting to see that in live action. I mean, it's incredible that we're here at this point. And so all these Comrade class cruisers fly through the clouds and somehow avoiding the TIE interceptors that fly up in the opposite direction. Kinda
Whooshing.
wild. Yeah. I guess they can't see each other in the clouds.
That, and it's been previously said there's like the radar smoke and communications can't get through that layer. So
Yep. Comms are down. Yep. And here is where we get into the video game portion of the episode. And Din Djarin clearly states he has no weapon, so he starts out very basic on his attack. And R5 gets, or actually before that, it looks like R5 does his job, opens up the first shield. And did anyone else find this kind of odd that they're kind of like in like a sleep mode and then they kind of wake up? I mean,
I don't think they're in a sleep mode. I think they're just standing there. When you're wearing armor, you like it. If you're just standing there, like it just, you can't see your face. You can't see any emotion. So I mean, they are, because I know on so many troops, there's someone that I troop with that actually does. He does fixer, and there's troops where like he'll just stand there, he won't move at all, and people like think he's a statue. Like that's how still he just kind of sits there. So it sometimes it's just them just being on guard duty and just being like that.
So yeah, Din Djarin goes through wave after wave as R5 does his job and opening up the shields. And he picks up weapons along the way, just like in a video game.
I would like to point out that the first thing that Hunter texted me this morning was, I want a mouse droid. That was the first thing that he told me. So I can already see him, just getting home from work. And that's the first thing that he does is go to his garage and starts doing research on a mouse droid. But yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, late to the party says those guards are probably like the Buckingham Palace guards.
Yep.
Ironically, yeah, Colin Johnson and I were there. But yeah, so there was a person in my area in the 501st that has a mouse droid, and it has, I think, the chassis of one of those like heavy duty RC cars, and it was just flying all over the convention floor. So, and always love to see the mouse droids back in something. Call back to the OT. And with the little police lights too. I thought that was
and
a
I
pretty
think
cool
that's
touch.
new. That was not.
I was like laughing at that. Get out of here.
Yeah. So yeah.
What do you think of the whole shield thing with the
Spartans? What is your profession?
The electro staff thing, the whole traitor joke. I was waiting for it.
I really liked like the added scenes when Din knocked the guys off because there's obviously no railings in Star Wars, and he'd like reach for the gun and he'd just miss it as the person careens down. There's some nice. It was a very you knew what Din's goal was. You understood the stakes, and it was very, very well done to make sure the audience was always set in what was happening. We always knew what the next enemies were, what he was currently fighting, where the direction of the scene was going. It was very well choreographed and very, very well shot.
You really think that they would have learned their lesson too about the whole not having a railing thing? Like I'm just saying, because there was that one scene in I think season 2, right, of where they're on Navarro and they're about to blow the base up, and then what's his name was like I'm not going out there. They have no railing out there. I don't feel safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see actually in the distance, I think at the beginning of this scene, that those are all clones of Moff Gideon.
So were they always clones of Moff Gideon? So even in like last season?
I think that's a little debatable. I think Moff Gideon kind of like went off the path of what they were trying to do. I think Moff Gideon is trying to kind of take over, and he started his own thing.
Yeah.
Because
We had
even
all thought that, like, as much as we could, that it was Snoke in the last one.
Yeah.
And you have like the scar on the head and everything. And I'm kind of wondering, like, are they trying to be like like it was always trying to be Gideon. However, this pre-evolution of Gideon is Snoke. Like before they perfected everything right. So when they go to get the research again, they couldn't get any research from here, but they could get research from the from season 2's like facility. And then they just continue to build off that, and that's where Snoke comes from.
we've had times in the show where they've visually alluded stuff in previous seasons. Like in the next season, we learn what it actually is. Like first thing that comes to mind, season 1, Boba Fett's technically his first appearance when he finds Fennec Shand. That's just Din Djarin. That's Din's shin plate. That is Din's boots, Din's cape. They literally wore the Din armor on set. And they're like, we don't know who this character is yet. They obviously thought it was Boba, but they didn't want to make people know that immediately. So I'm wondering if we have a similar case where in season 2, they kind of just had generic clone bodies.
Yeah.
You don't really care what's in there right now. It doesn't matter. It's not truly pertaining to the story. And then this season, they're like, it's Moff Gideon. And also, in last episode, we had Gideon say to the Empire Remnant leaders, I don't care about cloning. He's obviously very much focused on his own aspirations as opposed to the aspirations of the quote-unquote Empire as it is now.
Yeah, and here we have kind of a discovery of how these current inhabitants of Mandalore are living. They're growing gardens and farms, and Lady Kreese comments on it, and that's another kind of element to lend to the fact that Mandalore is in fact inhabitable. I thought that was kind of an interesting story point, and it leads to, I think, the eventuality of, yes, we're going to see Mandalore rebuilt.
But for these Mandalorians who were there, how did they not see Moff Gideon having traffic coming in and out or whatever? Because clearly he was in those caves doing the cloning and so forth for a long time. How did they not see that?
That's another reason why I thought like would be revealed, because of the whole spy situation.
Skinny Pete.
Another awesome shot of them flying out. I wish I could play it a lot longer, but we'll get taken down.
Yeah.
And yeah, just an awesome shot of the armor finally using her jetpack, flying alongside Bo-Katan.
Yes, but how did she fly with her tongs directly at her side and her skirt not flying around?
How did she get the fur wet in episode 1 and nothing bad happened?
That still bothers me. There's no way my fur is getting wet. So, but this is where I get into watching my own characters and their costumes and colors and everything, looking for changes. But I was like, how is she flying with those tongs? First of all, she's going to get bruises if it's actually sticking by her side. And second, what makes it stay there?
I personally really liked Armor going full Donkey Kong Super Hammer.
I love that too. I thought that was pretty cool.
And this right here. Bam! Love that.
Yeah.
Then the descent down into the Beskar troopers.
So again, I thought this was interesting because I always pictured them fully taking back Mandalore in the Dave Filoni movie. I thought that's how it was going to go, and then we would get a big battle like this. So now I'm curious of where the big battle, like in that movie, will take place. Because
maybe it'll be Thrawn.
Yeah. I'm just curious of where it will take place. Because I know that this planet isn't really on Thrawn's, it's not on his mission or anything, but I could see that like of the big battle like for Mandalore would take place in the movie, maybe with more Imperials, maybe with more Mandalorians, but I just didn't picture this would be like where we'd have the actual like fight of them taking it back. I don't know.
I'm okay with that because I never wanted it to only solely be which I'm glad when they had Filoni come out and be like, I'm making the movie and we're going to have all these characters in. I'm okay with it not being on Mandalore because it means that it's bigger than Mandalore, the issue. And it means that everyone, like, you're going to have people from Lothal come in. You're going to have people from Mandalore come in, people from all over the galaxy to stop whatever is going on with Thrawn's stuff. So I'm like, that sounds cool to me.
Back to Jakku.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they're gonna do something with that and make that event more than just the game. I'm
Right,
wondering
yeah.
if they're gonna change that up.
They
Because
could.
if they can do it for the comics, I'm in books, I'm sure we can write new lore with games as well, I guess. Because we have the Slave One at Maz Kanata's palace for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah. Forget about that.
And like we were talking about earlier, Moff Gideon lays out his master plan of creating clones via using cloners and Jedi and Mandalorians, and now we know why he wanted Grogu. And I think we all kind of assumed that he wanted Grogu for his Force capability and his super high M count there to use for his advantage to essentially take over the Empire. And we get the plan laid out.
And I mean, in the last episode, we had him directly say, "I'm working on combining the power of Mandalorians, Jedi, and I think it's just like regular people or something to
He said
make
cloners.
super troopers. Cloners, that's right, to make
Yeah.
super troopers." And then this episode, we saw vats on vats on vats of Moff Gideons. We've seen the past 2 seasons. He's really working hard to get Grogu for the midichlorians and to isolate for cloning, all that stuff. So all the pieces were there. I'm pretty sure everyone put them together, and then they doubled down on having it explicitly. I felt like it was very unnecessary, and it felt very odd for Gideon to fully admit his plan to anyone, let alone Din.
Yeah, it kind of felt like, are you not seeing this? Let me explain all of it to you.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
You saw me build a peanut butter and jelly, but do you know what this sandwich is?
Yeah, very mustache twirly. But
yeah, I was like, yeah.
I would just not talk about the mustache because it's not there anymore. But
Yeah. Mustache
got
twirling without the mustache.
Upper lip twirling.
and they also didn't. Oh man, I
Smoking.
think the big thing that also bothers me too is that they didn't talk about his helmet, of why he has horns on his helmet, and how the Praetorian Guards have the same type of armor, style as
And they
the
die.
armorer. Yeah,
But then they come back.
It kind of feels like there's a lot of cut content because as well when the ship in the next scene or whatever starts coming down, I feel like there's a whole scene that happened before he started coming down. Like I know it's implied that he's going to get shot down, but I feel like there's something that was taken out, and I feel like that there's a lot of this feels like it's been cut up and pieced back together with a lot of important details removed.
that felt like that one episode of the Bad Batch of where there were
Yeah, it's on fire, and then it's instantly solved, and don't worry about it. We fixed it. I was like, okay.
Yeah, all the way back in Kashyyyk. But yeah, no. So yeah, I think there were a lot of things that were answered by like just they like said the answer without explaining it. And this is something that I think kind of was just kind of left there. And they're like, okay, here's Moff Gideon. Here's his design. Here's the horns on his head. You can do with that as you will, and we won't talk about it because you have him. We don't know that much about him. Could he have been a Mandalorian? And then he was kind of pushed away, and then that's why he hates the Mandalorians. Like that, like he has some type of past with the Mandalorian people. I don't think he was just like, you know what, I hate Mandalorians. I think there's like something happened in his past that has a direct tie like to them in some way. And
Another
Sorry.
Another weird thing for me is that they kill off the Praetorian guards, but it's like they're using the exact same skilled weapons as they do in the sequel trilogy. So it's kind of like okay, but then
There's
if you
probably
look at
more of them.
But if you look at the lore book, it explains how they were trained with one specific weapon and they learned it and they were honed their skills with that weapon. And I was like, okay, cool. So they just got another one. They're like, all right, train with this weapon only. And if you're good enough, we'll add you to the Praetorian Guard. Because I was like, okay. Because when they showed up in this, I was like, oh, someone's either going to die or they're barely going to get away and someone's going to sacrifice themselves again. And I'm like, oh, they got killed? Okay.
Yeah.
Because that visual guide that you have explains all of the lore for the Praetorian Guards, and it doesn't fit in my head to them dying in this. And I was like, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, bringing up the concept of the horns, I know there's been a lot of speculation. I actually wanted to ask the Mandalorian what her opinions were on the horns on the armorer's helmet and on Moff Gideon's. Do you think there's any type of maybe connection? Does it go back to Maul? Do you have any idea? Maybe you've done more research than us in regards to the horns on the helmet? Well,
I think ultimately we'll see some connection between the armor and Maul at some point for the horns. I don't get the connection or foresee a connection between the horns on Gideon and those two connections. But I think because they've always had the horns on the armor and they're a little bit more visually, at least, and I know he's in a very dark space, but visually you've seen those from the beginning, and I think that was the tie to Maul or the reference to Maul for all the seasons. I don't know that they'll draw that connection with Gideon, or I personally don't.
yeah, I'm thinking back to the horns in animation. They were like way bigger and more pronounced. You could almost consider what's on top of the helmet for Moff Gideon here not to be horns. They just look like triangles in a way. But I think the reason is it just looks cool. I don't think there's any backstory behind the horns with Moff Gideon. I think there is backstory for the armorer though. So
I don't know. She might be like just a Zarbrak in general, because we see that like if Grogu can join, then any species can join.
Right.
So
yeah, that's also a possibility.
I actually thought that it was going to get to a point where they would all remove their helmets and we would get like a whole shot of all these different species underneath these helmets. And I was like, that would have been cool to me. Yeah. I'd also love to see different helmets of like people underneath the helmet being like different species, so that the helmet has to be made in a certain different way. Because we haven't really seen that through any of the other ones.
Yeah, since we were at Star Wars Celebration Europe in London, Josh, did you see? I think maybe they weren't there, but I've now seen on like Facebook posts a Togruta Mandalorian helmet where it covers the Montrals or the horns at the top.
Oh,
yeah, I think we did. We saw a couple of them where it like has a cutout for different pieces. Like we had one for a Twi'lek as well that I saw.
I know our friend Side does that for hers too. But yeah, no, like, I mean, I would love to see that. I would love to see just different species, like, you know, that are Mandalorian, because in Legends, they actually had some stormtroopers as well that were not just humans. They were different alien species too. So I would love to see them kind of bring that kind of back into canon. Yeah.
For the armorer's helmet, I wonder if it actually doesn't have a connection to Maul, and it's just in our terms, a medieval design. You know, her helmet's a very Spartan looking helmet, and she's previously said just in this season, all of her armor, the armor she makes, the armor files, I guess, that she has are ancient. That's why these Mandalorians in the covert have very different armor styles than the one with axe woves with bow that are more modern Mando armor styles. Din's stuff is in fact ancient designs. So I wonder if that's just the armorer's helmet. She's just wearing a very ornate, classic helmet that was here long before Maul ever came.
That would be a really good explanation of that style. This Facebook user brings up kind of what we've been talking about this whole time here in regards to the spies. So was there any Other relevance to Chapter 23's The Spies. We knew of one spy, but this episode didn't seem to reference anybody else turning or being a spy. Did anyone get anything from that other than it was just Katie O'Brien's character, Elia Kane?
I mean,
No.
to me, that's kind of lazy writing. If it was just Kane and it wasn't, any Mandalorian that was with them, and it was misleading and it made us think, and that's great. And having theories is great, but it's just like, I don't know. I feel like if it ended up being the armorer or it ended up being one of the Mandalorians that has been on the planet for a bit, that would have made the most sense to me. But if they end up revealing like, oh, we were talking about Kane being the spy, then that would have been like kind of hiding in plain sight. And we're like, okay, fine. But it's just like, it made sense for the armorer to be the spy because we see Moff Gideon show up in that episode and he's got the horns on his helmet. And then you see the Praetorian guards come out and they look very similar to what the armorer's helmet, like the kind of shape of the helmet. So it kind of made sense. But again, it could be hiding just in plain sight, and it ended up being Kane. But yeah,
I feel like as well it could just be incredibly lazy to call it the spies and have the spy in the first 2 minutes and no other spies. It's like call that the spies. Call episode 3 was it? Call episode 3 the spies. Don't call this one the spies. It's like they got the titles mixed up somewhere.
Yeah, that's possible. So yeah, we have 3 of the Praetorian guards that Moff Gideon ordered, and we all know from last episode they're pretty deadly, and their weapons do pierce Beskar, as we saw with Paz Vizsla. And these Praetorian guards, I think, look a whole lot better than the ones we saw and got in The Last Jedi. And I think we're gonna see some people cosplay as these in the 501st.
yeah,
Soon.
Yeah, I think we're going to see an uptick in that.
Yeah,
100%. And then you've got Grogu coming on through.
Yep, Grogu to the rescue. And yeah, I was very nervous throughout this whole sequence when Grogu shows up. And I was just like, man, thinking about all those people talking about, man, maybe Din Djarin doesn't make it out. But then the Praetorian Guard all concentrate on Grogu here and kind of go at him, slice him right in the stomach area. And then we all know the trick onto the lighting there. And what's funny is if you look at the captions, he's laughing while he's doing some of this stuff. Babbling.
Well, that kind of takes us
panting.
Well, that kind of takes us back to when we would see Yoda fight during the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
He would also be doing the same thing when it was like a serious fight. He would like, and he would just be kind of jumping from droid to droid, like taking them out. So
yeah, we still get this really awesome battle in the air. That was a great shot of the Darksaber going through the back and through the chest. And we have the confrontation I think we were all kind of anticipating here with Moff Gideon and Bo-Katan. Moff Gideon brings up surrender or fight because we all know the story that Bo-Katan told last episode about how she actually did surrender to try and save the people. Then Moff Gideon turned around and still killed everyone anyways, attempted to. And Moff Gideon has I guess, one of the staffs similar to what the Praetorian carry that can pierce Beskar. Seems easier than the lightsabers to pierce. And we get the shot here. I mean, you all figure that. I mean, I think we're all kind of in agreement that we know probably nothing really is going to happen to Grogu. And the fact that he also has that huge plate on his chest that the armor gave him with the Mudhorn signet, that maybe that was going to
I thought that was going to come into play and be the whole kind of myth-real thing.
Yeah. Like, oh my gosh, they shot Grogu, but no, they shot him right in the signet.
It feels like a lot of
Chekhov's that to happen.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of Chekhov's guns that were laid up in fact had a foundation to pop off, and then they never did. And I feel like that's why a lot of this episode didn't land for me. And I feel like I just left it disappointed. Like, it has some great, cool reveals and really cool action scenes that I've been waiting for throughout the series. I just feel like it never landed its emotional heights of the last season.
Yeah, look, there's a TIE fighter in the top corner there. Didn't notice that before. And yeah, I really love the way they had Grogu participate in the fight, helping Din Djarin with the Praetorians, using the Force here and there, moving weapons around, shoving them right in time, and actually blocking one of the thrusts with one of those blades right here. Bam! Thought that was cool. And Colin's favorite maneuver being executed here. And yeah, we get Din. I'm sorry. 2 hours of sleep, guys. We get Bo-Katan fighting Moff Gideon here. And what did you think was going to happen from this duel between the two here?
I did not expect the Darksaber to go, honestly. I feel like it's been such a focal point of the show. I did not expect it to go.
That to me was a complete shock.
Yeah,
and
it really
it felt
took me
like
off guard.
it felt like it was along the lines of seeing the Razor Crest being blown up. It's like, wow, you just got rid of an iconic thing in Star Wars. The Darksaber arguably is way more iconic than the Razor Crest.
Because now we have the N1, but what's going to replace the Darksaber?
The thing about the Darksaber though is because it is a saber, they can if the Kyber
gonna get a cross guard Darksaber because it's now a cracked crystal.
Yeah, so they could just put it into a different hilt. That's the the easiest way to kind of still have it around, because you have the Razor Crest that got blown up. That's going to be a lot more difficult to put back together.
Put a leather strap in the middle of it, and then it'll be fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Just to use a bunch of tape, and all good.
Or get
I thought they were going to have it.
He'll fix it.
Sorry, I thought they were going to have it change hands, go from Bo to Moth, and then to Din or Grogu, and kind of move around the battle, so to speak.
Kind of like what they did in Captain America Civil War, of where they kept kind of tossing the shield back and forth when they were fighting Iron Man.
Something I thought that they would have done is have her kind of have to make the decision on whether to help someone or lose the Darksaber. It's got to fall off the edge and no one's ever going to get it back again. And she's just but that's what got all of us together, this Darksaber. And then she loses it instead, and then helps the Mandalorians instead, and goes, you know what, the saber doesn't mean anything. It's what I do with the power I have, or to save people. And I'm like, okay, cool. You're an actual leader. You don't need a saber to be an actual leader. Good, cool. But they didn't do that.
Yeah, I automatically just thought, once I saw the casing crush, they're gonna maybe do something different with the crystal inside. It's a very unique lightsaber and a very unique properties. So, and right here, I actually kind of thought once Bo's helmet got removed, I was like, oh my gosh, is she gonna be for a split second? I was like, is she gonna be beheaded here? So here we go with Axe Woves. We totally thought that, I think a lot of us thought that he was maybe the prime suspect to be the spy, but every single Mandalorian was honorable and moral, which I don't think any of us anticipated for this season.
Another rewrite for me is having him be like, yeah, I sold everyone out, and then realizing maybe he shouldn't have done that, and then going down with the ship to redeem himself in the same arc. And the whole thing would have been cool, because it would have been those two were fighting originally, him and Paz Vizsla. So, and Paz sacrificed himself, and so did X, and I would have been like, that is really cool. I like how they could have they went out for the same kind of cause when they were fighting over their differences from before. So it would have been a cool they rhyme moment, but they didn't do it either.
Yeah, I can totally see that too. And the triple teaming on Moff Gideon, Grogu, Din, and Bo-Katan saying we're stronger together. Bo coming in with the shield. And then Grogu using the Force to get rid of Moff's staff. And then Din sliding in. It's pretty cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Again, there's elements that I really enjoy of this episode, and I liked the parts. I really enjoyed the part of where Din kind of went back to that kind of cowboy mode with the two pistols, and I thought that was great. And seeing Grogu actually fight was awesome, and seeing him use the skills that he's had all this time, and then actually use most of the training that he got from Luke in a battle, which we've been waiting for since like season 1, I think, of seeing him actually full out use his powers is great. So just seeing him not just sit in his pod just made me happy.
Yeah. I love the use of Grogu in the fighting sequences. I thought it all made sense. It was all logical. It was super cool to see. And yeah, you see the 3 main Mandos here in this scene. And a callback to Grogu's force power that we learned in season 1 when that incinerator trooper tried to burn everyone alive.
Do we think Moff Gideon died?
I think there's going to be a clone of him come back, honestly.
Yeah.
I feel like they could pull like a Force Unleashed of where like the because of that, honestly, just would also tie in everything happening with with Snoke and the Emperor and all that. And I guess he maybe that.
Then we can get the somehow Gideon returned line.
No.
Yeah, jeez. I also I think maybe that maybe wasn't the real Moff Gideon. Maybe that was the clone, and the real Moff Gideon was somewhere else. I could totally see them doing that.
Actually twirling his mustache.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, or we could see Moff Gideon kind of like horribly scarred like Anakin Skywalker. But Moff Gideon's suit was like highly mechanized and motorized, and so we don't know what other features it has. Maybe he had fire resistance built into it too, so maybe it was just kind of like he knew that there was only one way out and he took it and pulled like a Kino Loy there.
Kylo Ren voice changer too.
Yeah.
So maybe in Mando 4 he ends up like they set this up, right? We have to get rid of Moff Gideon or this will never end. Well, if he's not really dead, maybe he's coming back and searching for Grogu again.
Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt him coming back and then having the new empire be ruled by Thrawn and him being like, I set all that up. I did all this work. And them having
like Rogue One.
Yeah. Like you shouldn't be able to take over the empire. I should. I should have been the heir to the empire.
Yeah, I was gonna say you just don't get rid of Giancarlo Esposito like that, but I think they kind of did that.
He went out the same way Gus did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, have you seen Breaking Bad?
But admittedly, he wasn't as big a star as he is now. He kind of blew up from that show. So
that's true.
Literally.
And here we see Jimmy Kimmel's nephew get baptized in full.
Gotta love the helmet from Hasbro.
So yeah, we see the entire Mandalorian race that answered the call in existence there at the Living Waters.
During the the first watch of this, I didn't think that that Bo's covert was there until I saw it in the second episode, and I saw a couple of her people were in there, because I thought it was just like the watch that was there for the ceremony.
Yeah. And Din Djarin officially adopts Grogu.
Yeah, I mean, I think us as the audience already thought that that he was his son already. So
that is something that I was kind of like, okay, like I mean, we all kind of were like, that's his kid.
Can you do that
Bo
without
also
adoption
refers to him as
papers?
your kid.
Like,
If you're a Mandalorian, you can, I guess. And the other thing that was kind of interesting was that the armor kind of gave Grogu a new name and didn't call him Grogu Djarin, named him Din Grogu, which goes against what we've seen in Mandalorian tradition, recent Mandalorian tradition, because we all know Tar Vizsla, Paz Vizsla, and then with the Ren clan too, that it's the last name that gets passed down, not the first name. But we've all seen, even on our world, that some people, their first name is actually their last name when you hear it being spoken or written. So that was something that was kind of unique.
So do you
Din
suppose
Grogu
that's
sounds better
because
than Djarin Grogu. Is that?
Or Grogu Djarin.
Or Grogu Djarin, yeah.
Yeah.
well, but isn't
Din
Din,
Grogu sounds awesome though.
isn't Din what he brought to the clan, right? Because he also came in and took somebody else's last name, we think, when he came to the clan. So maybe Din is more his bloodline, that she carried that on for Grogu.
yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
I loved what they did here with the armorer, though. I mean, clearly she continues to be in high regard, and
Mhm.
she still is bringing forth, what can and cannot happen, but she's allowing and not necessarily encouraging, but if you give the good debate, she'll follow it.
You also hear the surprise in her voice when Din was like, "I am going to adopt Grogu." You actually hear like the kind of shock and surprise in her voice as well. So, seeing her have more emotion in this season was also very cool to see, because she was not in season 2 at all, and seeing her come back in Puka Boba was great, and seeing her have more character development and this season made me happy, because she's a very interesting character, and we even by the end of this we still don't know that much about her.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to see more stuff in the future, because I think that she's a very intriguing character, and I think having more kind of different plots kind of separate from the show The Mandalorian would be very interesting.
Yeah, I really like the character of the armor. I think she's unique. I talked about the helmet. The helmet is cool. Just the overall costume. And Emily Swallow actually cosplayed at a convention as the armor while that convention was opening up. There's a TikTok about it. And she was talking to people online, and they had no idea it was actually Emily Swallow in
That's
the
cool.
armor cosplay. And then they did a reveal right before they opened up the doors, and everyone was just shocked, and thought that was really cool on her part. And I'm glad that Emily Swallow is still, her character is still alive and well, and she can still portray the armor. And it's cool that now we know someone on the podcast that does cosplay as the armor.
Yeah, I've met Emily several times, and she is a wonderful human being and a great example. I mean, she is part of what I think brings the armor character to the surface the way we see her. And I love that they didn't keep her at the forge, that they did have her fight with her hammer and her tongs. I mean, she rolls her sleeves up and does it. She's not just watching from the sidelines. In this episode where they brought her in with the jetpack and so forth, I mean, I really love that they brought her forward as a character.
So what drew you like to do that costume? Like, what really intrigued you about the armor to say, "Hey, I'm gonna make that costume"?
Well, in the first season of The Mandalorian, she was one female that you knew was a female, and she clearly had a station amongst the Mandalorians. You weren't sure exactly how she got it or what she would do with it, but I loved the look of the costume, the character, and how she came back in and helped them escape, and then she fought the stormtroopers. That just was part of where I was like, okay, she's a background character, but she's not a background character. And she had, well, first of all, it was a cool costume, and she had cool toys with the hammer and the tongs and so forth. So that was part of what drew me to her.
Okay,
Nice.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I think she's quickly becoming one of my favorites. And that's really cool. You cosplayer. I don't think I know anyone aside from you now that cosplays as the armorer. There's
It's
no
a
one.
very fun costume.
Yeah, no one in my squad in San Antonio, I don't think, cosplays as the armorer. I haven't seen anyone. But this scene right here, do you think that Grogu maybe communicated or the mythosaur sensed Grogu or vice versa? Or was this just a random shot of the mythosaur opening its eye?
Get out of my water.
I thought they sensed each other. I think Grogu sensed him, and he sensed the element of the strong force. And
Mhm.
I think we all expected something bigger to happen with the mythosaur,
Right.
and
right,
so
right.
I think they had to pull something back in. And this probably was a disappointment because I really thought that it was either going to pop its head up or something would happen.
Right.
We've already seen this thing underwater. Thank you. And then they pan out to that shot of the flag, and I was like, I know it's a mythosaur. We know.
And then we get the lighting of the Great Forge. And I also want to ask you, Mom DeLorean, do you think we'll ever get to see the armor take off her helmet?
I hope not.
No? Okay, interesting.
I think that's part of the
Mystique.
facade and the illusion and so forth,
Yeah.
is that you've got her voice and her stature and movements, but you don't actually see a face to put with it. So I really hope she doesn't.
It was interesting that they never did it for Din this season.
I think that's because he was filming
never
The
there.
Last of Us. Yeah, because I think he was really not on set.
Yeah.
But I thought this was powerful with all
Yeah.
the Mandalorians and really showing the honor and the loyalty and the unity that
Yeah.
comes with being a Mandalorian. So I really liked this.
Yeah.
I honestly thought that when they were lighting the forge again, the first piece that would have been made out of that would have been Grogu's helmet. And I thought that's what we were going to end on, but we didn't. And I was like, come on, man.
I still got mixed feelings if they do give him if they give him a helmet. I mean, I think they will. I was kind of surprised that they didn't, because he technically took the creed, right?
Yeah, because Din's like, I adopt him and I'll talk
Yeah.
for him. And I was like, okay.
Okay. So technically, Grogu is a Mandalorian, but he's not wearing the helmet. So did they just bend the rules, or did the armor was like, I don't see that in my scripture, but I'm just going to change that? Like,
Well,
I
remember
didn't
back
feel
a
like
few
he took
episodes
the
ago.
creed.
oh, okay.
And also remember back a few episodes ago where Bo-Katan was able to take off her helmet. She walked between two worlds kind of thing.
Right, but I don't think she's technically part of the watch anymore. Or is it all one thing now? See, again, they didn't elaborate
it's
that.
a little fuzzy. But I mean, I don't have any issue with Grogu not having a helmet. But I mean, there is are some cool mock-ups online of Grogu in armor, and it's like the question is, do the ears stick out of the helmet or are they covered?
I don't think the ears would be in the helmet. I think the ears would be out.
Yeah.
Like Battlefront 2 Yoda.
Yeah.
Hooded Yoda.
But I did feel like he didn't actually take the creed. He was moved from a foundling label to an apprentice label, so he's still in training. But I didn't feel like in the scenes he actually took the creed and became a Mandalorian. He's been accepted as an apprentice level, but that was where I thought it stopped.
Okay. Okay. All right.
And we're back at the pilot hangout here at the bar, and of course,
No
we all
Zeb.
expect to see some
No
cameos
Zeb.
here, which we did get. We see Peter Ramsey, who directed one of the episodes this season, who was also a director on Into the Spider-Verse, far left. Of course, Dave Filoni there with his traditional headgear.
That is not his actual hat, though. That was a different hat specifically made for it, and it actually looks like Cad Bane's hat that we see in the Book of Boba.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought it was Cad Bane's hat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here we can see all the trophies at the top, all the buckets. And we see an old IG head laying around there. It's one of the trophies. And here we essentially get the conversation where Din Djarin applies to work for the New Republic. And Din Djarin knows that Carson Teva is not going to say no. And he doesn't want to be a bounty hunter. He wants to be a contractor, essentially, and work for the New Republic on a case-by-case basis. And here you can see that really cool bomber jacket that this actor said that he got to keep. I think everyone got to keep their bomber jackets that were specifically made for them. But for some reason, they didn't let Filoni keep the hat they made for him.
And I think that might go into the theory that might be the hat they used for Cad Bane, and they're like, okay, here's like a space cowboy looking hat. Because in the Clone Wars, when it's that one era, that one arc where it's Obi-Wan on a cover, you actually see him pick up a fedora that looks like the hat of Indiana Jones. So I don't know why they didn't just have like his normal hat in there, but I guess they were like, hey, here's Cad Bane's hat, from the set, just wear this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like Josh pointed out, we got no Zeb. There was no other Rebels crew hanging out here. No other big cameos, but I think Zeb costs a lot of money to put on screen. So I think they kind of saved a little bit by not having him here. But I fully anticipate him being in the Ahsoka show quite a bit.
Yeah.
Flashbacks. So we go back to Navarro, and we have a couple of payoffs here, I think. Then reintroduces IG-12, and we see the Anzellans again as the new Marshal of Navarro.
Did they get Taika to do lines for this, do you reckon? Or do you reckon that they used AI? Because it doesn't quite sound like he's voicing that entirely. It sounds like some of it might be generated.
It's because it's an actual droid. Yeah.
Oh, I get that, but it's still Taika voicing it. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
The re-speecher
Getting like
technology
the
that Lucasfilm
James Earl
has.
Jones. Yeah.
Yeah, the re-speecher technology Lucasfilm has is really advanced. I just don't know how much it costs. I think it'd be really easy for Taika just to get into some random recording studio wherever he is in the world and just record his lines and send them in, kind of like what
he did that. With all the stuff that he does, and they were just like, here's like $1 million to say like a few lines for us, please. He would have been like, I got you, bro. I got my iPhone right here.
And yep, from IG-11 to IG-12 back to IG-11, the Marshal of Navarro. And here we see the small housing that Grief Karga gave to Din Djarin and Grogu, and you see the N1 Starfighter.
Obi-Wan vibes.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. And
I do like this setting. I do like his house. I mean, as much as I was kind of talking about how like this scene felt like the end of the series, I did like it.
Oh yeah.
It was satisfying, but it also felt weird because it was like, okay, so is this the end of the show? And I think they did the circle thing to kind of pay homage to the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi, because that's how that movie ended, where it was like a closed circle like that. But yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that is it for season 3 of The Mandalorian. Last night when we did the pre-show and post-show late at night, we all gave it ratings. We had Ted from Countdown to the Geekcast, and we had Craig, our good friend of the podcast, on, and he gave it, I believe he gave it a 6.5 as a season, I think kind of as a finale as well. What's your rating, Josh, starting down the line?
I'm gonna say like a 6.5 or a 7 in comparison to the other seasons that we've had. I feel like our ending payoffs didn't reach the same emotional heights that I had wished that they would have. And it feels like a lot of it got kind of cut off at the end. And I feel like a lot of us Star Wars fans were looking for something really big again, because unfortunately we ended with Luke the last one. So this is where we are.
How do you top that?
It's kind of weird that the Bad Batch also felt like such a weird way to stop or end. And I feel like the same thing with this season. It's kind of like, I don't know what's going on with Star Wars right now, but I feel like they haven't hit those emotional heights, and then they just kind of stopped really quick. I'm like, oh, okay. And I don't know where they're going to go after this for Mandalorian, because it just feels like you could stop right now and just be the way it is.
Yeah. Colin, what's your rating?
I feel like after a second viewing of it, I'm going to give it like I'm probably going to give it like a solid 7. And it's because of the first time I watched it, I was on the verge of giving it a 5.5 or 6. And it just kind of, and the reason why is because there was a lot that they had to, kind of close. There were a lot of stories that they had to close that they were building up to this final episode. And there were just things that were kind of felt like, okay, here's no explanation, but here's the answer. And it was like, oh, okay. That's kind of like, you've had the time, but I know that they're, they are focusing on the larger story, and it made sense why we had the episodes that we did this season. I think my favorite season, like, of all the Star Wars, of The Mandalorian, is probably season 2. And that felt so cinematic every episode, I think, of season 2. And you get to this one, and it was great. It felt like something was missing halfway through. And I don't know, for me, it kind of felt like it was possibly because to me, the music is a big thing for any Star Wars project, and not having Ludwig be on there full time doing the music for it threw me off. And they reused a lot of the themes from the old seasons. So that's one thing that threw me off for this entire season. But for this episode, I give it a solid 7.
Nice. Ben?
I think for the season and for this episode, I'm going to go with a 6. That is subject to change, though. I still don't know exactly, like that's a very loose 6. I don't know exactly how I feel about the episode and the season as a whole just yet. It's been up, it's been down. I've had some very different reactions almost every week. It feels like it's some, yeah. I don't know. I don't know how I feel at this point. But that is definitely subject to change. I'm gonna give it a watch through, just try to get it all out in one sitting, and see how I feel after that. So it is subject to change, but I think now I'm gonna sit at a solid 6.
All right. And finally, the Mom DeLorean of Kansas City. What were your thoughts?
I would give it an 8 overall, because first of all, I'm very biased. I have both the armor and Bo-Katan costumes, and so every show I had something that I really could sink my teeth into and get excited about, especially when they worked together or had scenes together. So that carried me through quite a little bit, but at the same time, you saw new animals, new scenes. You got the rebels back, you got Zeb. I mean, so I really think there was a lot that did come together. And I also feel like too many of the shows were rushed. I would have liked some more time to spend in each of the scenes and connect things a little bit more. I think the last week's episode I felt like was more cinematic than the others felt like. The others felt like you kind of started and you finished really quickly. So I would have liked to have more time, but being able to see the characters more and all the new Mandos, the different costumes and ways in which they did the different Mandos, I felt like that was very. I thought that was super.
I agree. Yeah.
I wish
Yeah,
there
as far
was
as
more
my rating
gory as
goes.
well. Sorry.
What was that, Ben?
I just wish that there was more gory and shard as well. I would have loved to see more
Oh,
of the
Corey and
pirates.
Shard, yeah.
I just would have liked more pirates than we actually got. I was so hyped for the pirates.
Yeah.
Skeleton Crew. Don't
Yep.
worry,
Yep.
they're coming.
Mando, please.
Yes.
I feel like if Thrawn showed up, I could at least say it didn't live up to the same heights as season 2, but we still did get something great. But it didn't happen, so now I'm kind of just puzzled and kind of stuck in that middle kind of feeling. And I definitely agree with having the Armor story and Bo's story being the main focal points of this season, and that being amazing for them. And I honestly feel like it's their story in this season, but I don't feel like that was ever brought up as a main selling point for this season. And I wish that would have been more a part of the marketing, that we're moving away from just having it be Din's story, and Grogu's story, and Morley being about the Mandalorian as a whole. Like, put an S on the end and it's fine. Like,
Yeah.
it's I just feel like most people, and even like the not as much Star Wars fans as us, it's these people who are like, they're all in on Din. Everything is Din. And then the kids are all in on Grogu. So it's like this big powerhouse of them. And then I feel like they didn't get that kind as much of that story as they wanted this season, but they got more of the Mandalorian culture as a whole. So that's where it is for me.
I feel like that is partly because of Book of Boba Fett as well, is that we got quite a bit of important story beats, which would have been in the season in the Book of Boba Fett.
Yep. If you, yeah, that's something I always wondered, is why we didn't just leave Grogu out for like a season, but I'm assuming it was because he's just too marketable.
Yeah. In general, I did like the direction they went with having Bo-Katan and the armor more front and center this season, especially Bo-Katan. I really love the fact that Katie Sackhoff got to portray Bo-Katan in live action, and of course she was the voice in animation. But I know a little bit of Katie Sackhoff's story and how close she's been to starring in some really big budget, really critically acclaimed stuff, and she's just barely missed out. And now she's pretty much leading Star Wars as the big female lead, and I think that's awesome for her career. And I'm glad she didn't get killed off, and she can continue, and whatever capacity that Filoni, Favreau, and Kathleen Kennedy or the future president wants to go now. I mean, she's totally at their disposal, and of course, Armor as well. She's available, and we can have maybe if they want to do it, a whole entirely separate show from the main Grogu and Din Djarin storyline. Maybe have that show take the place of the Rangers of the New Republic that got shelved. So, I mean, there's that possibility. But I do agree with, I'm not sure who said it on the show, that maybe the climactic event, they're going to have those Mandalorians on Mandalore in reserve and use them as the army to go up against maybe Thrawn's army or whatever big threat we have. So I think the future is still exciting. I'm really looking forward to hopefully a season 4. Jon Favreau said he wrote season 4. Some people say, well, maybe he could have just been saying that just to give an answer to the press. But I think he has a season 4 written. I think we're gonna get a season 4. With reports that the Filoni movie is going to come out in 2026, to me, that's a little soon if they're going to shoot a season 4. But if Filoni is not on season 4, I mean, I guess they could technically get it done where they could shoot a season, then go straight into a movie and shoot the movie.
Yeah.
I think the timing is going to be a little tight, but I'm
I
still
think-
excited about the Mandalorian and the prospects of what we have in the future. To see the Mandalorian on screen in a theater is going to be a huge event.
Mhm.
And
Oh, it's
to
going to
get
be
Grogu-
insane. Yeah.
Yeah, to get Grogu on the big screen finally. And there's also the potential that he might be in the new Jedi Order film as well with Daisy Ridley.
Yeah.
I think he's
that's a
going to show up
possibility.
there. I'm wondering. I feel like we didn't get where this next season is going to go. We had a lot of speculations as to where this last season was going to go, but now I'm kind of like, I have no idea. Like, I genuinely have no idea where it's going to go because all the things that I have questions for, I can almost guarantee are going to be answered in Ahsoka. So at this point, I'm just kind of sitting here like, wherever we go, I guess. So that's fine with me.
Yeah, Late to the Party says the insane Mandalorian action this season alone gives it an 8. That air-to-air combat in the finale was glorious. I agree. I love that air-to-air combat stuff that we've seen in animation and now in live action. That worked so great, I think, in live action. I think that would have been one of my big worries going into it, but it looked awesome. The way they pulled that off, it was incredible. And I want to see something like that on the big screen. I think we're going to get it. I think we're going to see the Mandalorians in action again. And 2025, 26 possibly, and 27, maybe 3 back-to-back years of Star Wars. So we have a lot to look forward to. And I think those 2 years in between and then the Japan celebration, I think there's going to be a lot of marketing for the new film and possibly season 4 Mando. So still lots of stuff to look forward to. And Colin just sent an Instagram post out today for the year of 2020, the rest of 2023 with Jedi Survivor, Ahsoka, Skeleton Crew, and Visions, of course. That's going to be the next thing that drops on May 4th.
So actually, Jedi Survivor comes out next week.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's huge because
what's the date on that?
April 28th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I said 28th on the pre-show, and someone tried to correct me, and I was like, okay.
Nope.
But
all
right.
It comes out on the 28th.
All right. Awesome.
I think, like, from myself, Josh, and Ben, we're very, very excited for that game. Like that.
Oh yeah.
That
oh
game
yeah.
is going to be amazing. I am so ready for that. And I was surprised that they didn't have a panel for the game at Celebration. I was kind of
but they had ads.
Yes.
Oh boy, did they have ads.
There was so much advertisement for, I mean, just for that game. But I'm telling you right now, that game is going to be amazing. And it's going to be times 10 of what the first game was, apparently. And the customization is going to be crazy. Of just, oh man, I'm super, super excited for it. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. In London, they had ads at the bus stops and I think on some double-decker buses as well. We didn't get to see them though when we were driving around. I'm kind of disappointed.
I saw a lot of billboards and like the
Yeah.
ones that are at bus stop stations where they have like and it was a lot.
Yeah.
It was on the microphone for everyone who was talking at the live stage.
Yeah.
It was like nice.
Yeah, very interesting. And I think I heard something that Cameron Monaghan wasn't supposed to go up on the live stage, and he just did it.
Yes. They, he actually was wearing a poncho. Yeah.
And saw someone dressed up as him, and he's like, "Here you go." I was like, "Oh."
I was very happy for the person that got it. Because of the person that actually got it is a very well-known Cal Kestis cosplayer. So I was really happy that, he was the one to get the poncho because he looks great. Like his costume was fantastic. But, yeah.
So one thing I did learn about Cameron Monaghan was he was spoken about by Matt Martin on a podcast that Cameron Monaghan is a really big Star Wars fan. And he knows a lot about the lore. And when he was doing the motion capture for the video game, he was like telling people kind of like how certain stuff should go, what the lore was. And they had Matt Martin off to the side on his laptop. And Cameron Monaghan would say, I think we need to change this. And he'd go up to Matt Martin and recommend a change. And Matt Martin would think about it And he would say, yeah, that does make sense. I think we could do that. And he would like get the approval that way. So
That's cool.
I think we could put Cameron Monaghan along with people like Sam Witwer.
All right, get him on the
and-
podcast.
Yeah, definitely want to try and get him on the podcast. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's just another actor that's totally into Star Wars, that's in Star Wars, and should have a live action, either TV show or film, involving Cal Kestis in some way, shape, or form. I think that'd be
100% agree.
really great.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much all I got. We're at the hour 45 mark, and yeah, that's season 3 of The Mandalorian. I want to thank our special guest, the Mom DeLorean of Kansas City. Thank you so much for
Thanks
joining
for having
us.
me.
And yeah, I think everyone would agree with me. We'd like to extend our invitation to you to join us on future podcasts if you want to.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're probably one of the coolest moms I've ever met. So,
Well, thank you.
so yeah, Josh is very lucky to have you as a mom.
Yeah.
Not this Josh, the other Josh.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. No, I'd love to. Love to spend more time with you guys. Thanks so much.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, for the Mom DeLorean, Ben, Colin, and Josh, my name's David, and may the force be with you.
Always.